Hey Skiba News Nation family, thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. You can also help support this channel by getting yourself some Skiba News Nation merch. Also, we are proud to announce that we are now on Patreon, where you will get bonus content, shoutouts, and much more. Thank you again for watching and helping us stay on the quest for truth. Huge shout out to all our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for your support. We couldn't do this show without you. If you want to help support us, go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation.
Welcome to Skiba News Nation, bringing you unfiltered views, news, interviews, discussions, and more. And now, here's your host, Jeremiah Skiba, award-winning musician and son of Rob Skiba.
Hey Skiba News Nation family, I'm your host Jeremiah Skiba. Welcome to episode 11 of Skiba News Nation. We'll be discussing Biden signs Anti-Inflation Act, Joe Rogan discusses abortion, snakes given legs again, Project Veritas whistleblower leaks domestic violent extremist list, an all-new Opus Corner, and for history we're going to be talking about the Unabomber and the Harvard studies experiments, memes, and much more, so stay tuned. And before we get into the current news, let me introduce my co-host, Jake Grant. How you doing, Jake?
Hey, Jeremiah. I'm doing great.
We got a good show.
How are you, man?
I'm doing good. Doing good. I think we got a good show for everybody this week.
Yes, we do. We're going to be getting into some really interesting, controversial news. We'll be careful with our terms so we don't get in trouble, but I think the audience is going to really enjoy what we're going to talk about today.
Well, you want to get right into it?
Let's do it. All right, so before we get into the news, just a little brief meme intro for our news segment. Whenever we talk about waking up to the truth of the world, I wanted to share this. It's sort of like you're an alcoholic and you stop drinking, but you live the rest of your life in a bar. You're in the bar, but you don't really fit in because you're not drinking anymore. Awakening, or waking up to the truth of the world, is a bit like that. It's like sobering up, but spending the rest of your life in a bar where everybody's drinking and rather drunk, loaded, and acting weird because of it, and wondering why you're not partaking and thinking you're a bit strange, you know? And this is from a guy named Adyashanti, and he nailed it. That's really what it's like when you see all these things that are being uncovered in the world, and you realize that there's people that are fast asleep and they do not want to hear the truth. They don't want to wake up to some of the harsh realities. But Jeremiah, I'm excited, man, that we are now on a podcast format. We're on Spotify. We're on several other platforms. We have a podcast hub now.
Yeah, we got Apple. We got Apple Podcast. We got Amazon Music Podcast, and we got Spotify, and probably a couple more. I'm still kind of working on it, but those three for sure as of episode 11. But you guys asked for it, so you guys got it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know it's always easier sometimes to listen to things.
Yeah, you did all the hard work. I mean, everybody thank Jake for it because he really helped put everything in there, and thank you, Jake.
Oh, no problem, guys. Oh, shucks. I know it's always easier to listen to stuff sometimes, so we wanted to make that happen for everyone. Here's the interesting thing regarding fact checkers. Noah's fact checkers drowned. So in today's world, you can't get off Facebook or Google or whatever without having your stuff fact checked by paid propagandists. Pretty much is what the truth of the matter is. And we're going to be talking about some interesting things today, and these things are often fact-checked by the experts, but we're going to show some examples of things that have been fact-checked and people that call out the controversy of a topic are called conspiracy theorists, and it turns out that they're the ones that are proven right after a matter of time passes. But before we get into some of the kind of the crazy news, just a few more things. This is not just a show to get people depressed about how the world's falling apart around us, all these agendas that are weighed up against us, but to remind ourselves how to level up as mankind so that we can, rise from the ashes of, the New World Order burning down this system. And instead of joining that system, we need to build better. We need to not Biden's slogan.
Not build back better.
Not build back better. But of course, that's what they want to do, and they're wanting to implement the New World Order in their building back. But what we want to do is build an alternative, build a family unit and a community that can survive these hard times. So something that's interesting is back in the day, when people used to store up food and can things, it was called a way of life. But now it's called prepping. And for those of you listening, I'm showing a picture of some old black and white photos of some ladies with a whole pantry full of canned goods. Just this week, my wife actually started to can some food, and so we have a fresh garden. So we're trying to implement some of these things I'm talking about. But it's important because they can't control people who are self-dependent and know how to take care of themselves. And this is why they don't teach you the basic skills of survival at school. They teach you how to just depend on the system. And man, how true is that? What do you think?
Oh, I think that's super true. I agree with you 100%. I mean, it's almost like the fact checkers and everybody that's trying to call us conspiracy theorists are the ones that are actually covering everything up to make us seem crazy for knowing the truth and having a truth community, like you said. Like, that's what Skiba News Nation is for all of us, to be to help each other in many ways.
Yeah, to encourage each other, to just refine ourselves as humans and mankind, to get closer to God, to get closer to nature, and growing our own food. And the reason we talk about things like this is because this is what is being called sustainable options for diet in the near future. I'm sharing a picture here of scientists are experimenting with larva fat to replace butter. They soak insects in water and then mush them with a blender before centrifuges separate a butter-like substance, which the team then uses to bake with. And Belgian researchers make cake with butter made from bug food. This is something that we've talked about before and is a recurring pattern that they are trying to say, hey, bugs and insects are a great sustainable alternative to the food and the things that are going up in price in the grocery store because of the supply breakdown, of the fact that all of these food processing plants over the past year and a half have been destroyed and burned down. And so to maybe refer to a movie, I don't know if you ever saw the sci-fi movie Snowpiercer. Did you ever see that sci-fi, Jeremiah?
I didn't, no.
Well, in the movie, it's of this train that it's a post-apocalyptic movie of this train that just zips around the world, and the people in the very back of the train are like the lower class people, and the people in the very front are like the elites or whatever. But the way that they feed the low class people is they have this whole train cart that just grinds up cockroaches that they just grow and feeds all the people these little cockroach cakes. And it's kind of like predictive programming for what they're trying to push on mankind, because it's sustainable and eco-friendly to feed people insects that can be grown in a very concentrated small area, instead of allowing people to grow livestock or have land like we're talking about in our previous pictures and grow their own vegetables. But oh man, I saw another picture of a bag of I think it was Cheetos or cheese puffs, and it had sustainably made in big letters. And you flip it over and you look at the ingredients, and on it says that they were using cricket flour to make these cheese puffs. And this is what they're selling to people in health food stores and things. It's just so crazy, man. It's this weird agenda. And I believe part of it is you can grow a lot of insects in a small concentrated area. And if the food supply chain breaks down, if people don't have land, if they're living in the cities, what is there an abundance of in the city, man? Cockroaches, gross insects.
Grew up with them all my life.
Oh man, I just watch out and recognize that we're warning you guys so that you don't end up eating bug burgers, that you end up eating healthy, out of the garden vegetables and organic, non-GMO foods, because what's coming on the horizon is some gross alternatives. But if you're hungry, hey, you're not going to complain. You're probably going to take whatever they give you.
I'd rather starve than eat crickets, I could tell you that much. Anything with an exoskeleton, like I was saying earlier to you before we started the show, like I can do like jump scares and all that kind of stuff, but when it comes to bugs, I scream like a little girl. Like I can't do it. So if they're gonna make me eat them, there's not an amount of money that you could pay me to eat a bug. So hopefully it doesn't come down to that.
Yeah, man. I know. I'm not a big fan of bugs. I grew up overseas in the Philippines, and I remember cockroaches there fly and bite and are fast and just terrifying. And but just to imagine them trying to, feed that to people is just terrible. Anyways, let's move on to our main news segment and some of our articles today. Here's a pretty interesting bill that was just signed into law. You guys have probably heard of it, but if you haven't, you need to look this up. It's called the Inflation Reduction Act, and Biden just recently signed it. It's a $740 billion act, and he signed it into law. And he says it's going to allow us to boldly take additional steps towards all my climate goals, and ones we set out when we ran. Stated the president. It includes ensuring that we create clean energy opportunities in frontline and fence line communities that have been smothered by a legacy of pollution and fighting environmental injustice. So it's just, this crazy thing. Here's some of the things that it says. It's $740 billion, $60 billion goes towards environmental justice, so-called, which is aimed at transitioning communities away from fossil fuels. $370 billion of the package is set aside for the White House's definition of clean energy security, while it allows the EPA to fine businesses $900 per metric ton of methane they produce. I'm kind of curious if this applies to farmers with cows that fart. Because I remember hearing at one point they were pushing the ideology that having cattle that produce gas was contributing to global warming. So just nonsense stuff. But who knows? This might be one of the sneaky ways that they're trying to get people. Keeping on, however, critics beg to differ with Biden's assessment. The measure imposes a 15% minimum corporate tax, which analysts fear will be passed on to the consumer. Here is the most alarming aspect of that thing that has just been signed into law. The legislation provides the Internal Revenue Service with $80 billion to hire 87,000 new agents, which will make the IRS 3/4 the size of the U.S. Marine Corps. That's insane, man. 3/4 the size of the U.S. Marines are now rifling through your tax information to see if they can stick it to you. The IRS has asked applicants to be willing to use deadly force, as the statutory body has accumulated a stockpile of 4,600 firearms and 5 million rounds of ammunition.
And that's so funny because they're trying to take away our guns, but they're giving them to these IRS guys. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
So there is now an army of IRS agents that have now been hired that are going to be going after people. Now, they say that up to 90% of the new IRS revenue will be extracted from individuals making less than $200,000 a year. And supporters of the bill have failed to explain which of its components will actually reduce inflation. So in the spirit of this story, Jeremiah, I have some pretty great, funny memes revolving around the IRS that I wanted to share with you guys. So not only are they coming after the people that might have messed up their taxes or people that aren't reporting things from PayPal or whatever, or crypto, there's a big aspect of this that is tied to a reckoning for those who made it big in crypto in the previous few years. But now the Internal Revenue Service, kind of like the the mafia, they provide a service. Let us provide a service or a protection for you. But yeah, just the picture for you guys to see is somebody holding up another person, and services in quotation marks. But man, check this out. This is in regards to what I was sharing earlier about Noah's fact checkers drowned. Well, guess what? This interesting time lapse here shows 2 Yahoo articles, and the first one says, fact check: Treasury proposal wouldn't levy new tax on PayPal and Venmo transactions. The claim borrowed funds exceeding $600 deposited via smartphone apps would be taxed under a new bill. A proposal from the Department of Treasury aimed at decreasing tax avoidance has become the subject of misinformation online. And this article came out in September 26, 2021. And Yahoo then, this year, coming out in August 11th, 2022, posted a new article saying, used PayPal or Venmo? Look out for this IRS tax form. So they pretty much contradict themselves of what was being called a conspiracy or misinformation last year is now completely reversed. And now they're saying, if you use PayPal, Venmo, and other third-party payment networks, then you might get a 1099 form from the IRS. The form reports transactions from third-party payment networks. And of course, this is all in relation to the almost 100,000, 89,000 IRS agents that are going to be checking up on everyone's digital financial activity. So just proving the fact checkers needed to be fact checked themselves, because it came true what the quote unquote conspiracy theorists were saying was going to happen. Here's something interesting. We should send 87,000 IRS agents to Ukraine. They'll find a lot of our tax dollars over there. So with a picture of Hermit the Frog sipping
Kermit
a cup
the
of tea.
Frog here.
Kermit the Frog, you should send 87. I sound like a weird, like
$87,000 to the IRS
you do
agents.
way better.
You do a better, what was that other voice? Elmo. I can't do Elmo, but you can. So I do a better.
Yeah. Yeah, better not do Elmo's voice this time. Last time we got a copyright or a YouTube strike for you talking in Elmo's voice. We said the no word, though. Of course, that probably contributed. But for real, man, we're sending billions of dollars in taxpayer money over to Ukraine. And now they're saying we're going to get a reckoning to the U.S. citizen, just coming after them with an army of IRS agents while they're sending all that money overseas. This is just such a crazy administration. And, we know they're not out for us. We know they're just for the continuation of government is not for the continuation of you. The continuation of government is for them to stay in power, regardless of what happens to us as people. So, here's another thing. It's a picture of the Terminator robot, and it says, "Me finds a nickel in the parking lot. The IRS, buenos dias." So, like, oh man, they're looking out to destroy mom and pops and to turn us into a third world country where we can totally be absorbed into the European union style New World Order, just no autonomy, no freedoms other than what they allow.
Where we have to rely on them 100%. That's what they want, because then they can control the population.
Exactly. You know, it's interesting when the country that revolted over taxes hires 87,000 new IRS agents. Remember, the Revolutionary War against the British was over taxation without representation.
Yep.
It was over a tax, no less, over tea. That's what the Boston Tea Party was all about. The king was going to tax the tea that people were drinking, and they went up on the deck of the ship and threw those boxes into the river, and that's the day that Coffee Drinkers United began. You know, like that's when America became a coffee nation and not a tea nation like the Brits. But man, it's just the constricting boa constrictor of this world government that has its tentacles in the U.S. Policies and politics, that they're trying to destroy the freedoms that we have here. And one of the ways they do it is they come after your pocketbook. All right, so here's another one. It's a raptor looking around a corner, and it says IRS agents. It's the raptor's labeled IRS agent. And it's a kid hiding, and he's like labeled your paycheck. And the raptor's coming to get, the IRS is coming to get your paycheck, and it's labeled by a fact checker. This is misleading.
What is that real?
The Libertarian Party of Louisiana posted that IRS agents are coming for your paycheck. However, fact checkers determined that not all agents are dinosaurs.
No.
So no, it's probably not. It's probably Photoshop, but it
wouldn't surprise me if it was real, though. It would not surprise me.
Fact checkers have just gotten back that not all the IRS agents are reptilians. All right, so here's one more. I can't help myself. It's a giant crocodile with people in the mouth holding up the teeth as it's about to chomp down on them, and it says the crocodile's labeled inflation. And the people say, help, finally, help has arrived. And this like ambulance pulls up, and it's labeled Inflation Reduction Act with a tag called IRS. And it says, actually, we're here to audit you. So the people are like, help us. The inflation is destroying our lives. We can't afford anything. And then the Inflation Reduction Act is here to audit you. Guess what? That's what we're gonna get. Those were some of the main memes I wanted to share regarding that. But man, just what are some of your thoughts on this? Administration coming after the everyday working people in a way, because it's just like, why would they need 89,000 IRS agents to come after, what is the point of that? I just don't get it.
I mean, I don't either. I just feel like they're trying to squeeze every penny they can out of people so that they're broke, and that they can't, they have to rely even more on the government than some people already are relying on the government, and then they have to even more because all the money that they do make, they're taking all of it. I mean, that's what I feel.
Yeah. I mean, people can't afford to pay their taxes. As inflation rises, it eats up all that they have. And the thing is the modern version of slavery that people don't realize they are currently experiencing and living in is a system of debt enslavement with free range borders, right? You're able to go anywhere and do anything, but you're a slave to the man to pay those dividends because that number just keeps growing over your head. And that's how they have just tricked all of the Western world to operate in this new form of plantation, which is unfortunately the debt-based slavery system of working for the man, going into debt, having to meet those dividend payments just to stay above water. And then if you don't pay, guess what? They come with a gun to your head, and like, for example, the IRS, they can put you in jail if you are evading, or if you're not paying, or if you messed up at some point. They levy all these things against you, and they destroy people's lives. And it's just, pretty alarming. And then here's another thing. No one is above the law, though, right? The Biden's passing these laws, and then, of course, the picture right beside "no one's above the law" is Hunter Biden smoking crack,
and crooked Hillary.
A picture of Jeffrey Epstein with a halo above his head, Hillary Clinton like bleaching some hard drives. These people that pass these constricting, burdensome laws and regulations, they don't have your best interests in mind. They are operating on behalf of corporations, special interest groups, lobbyists, and not to mention, even recently, the past few years, the topic of the medical lobbying that happened that pushed through certain agendas. And I'm going to show something on screen for those who are listening. You're going to want to catch this visually, because I'm not going to actually read a lot of this, but the US CDC has quietly deleted statements regarding, I'm going to use the word marinara, and they removed aspects regarding something that they said at one point would not last very long in your body. Well, they removed that wording from their website completely, because it's starting to prove false through alternative scientific, tests and experiments. And the revelation is that their claims that marinara and certain things that have been put into our bodies over the past few years, if you caved into certain medical decisions, it's just crazy that they're removing this stuff from their official websites so that people can't claim that they lied to them. But guess what? There's something called the Wayback Machine, and there's web archives that allow us to see what previous renditions of their claims were and how they are changing through time as it's affecting our health. And here's one last thing, and then we're going to share a video regarding Joe Rogan and him discussing the topic of Roe versus Wade and abortion. But I'm not going to read certain things in this, but it says, "Hey girl, your last name must be blankety blank because you just made my heart stop." So pretty funny. And it's the name of a pharmaceutical company. If you guys are listening and wondering, "Hey girl, your last name must be this pharmaceutical company because you just made my heart stop." And this is, of course, tied to myocarditis and certain things that are arising after the largest experiment that has ever been conducted on mankind. So I've been very vague. I'm trying to be super careful, Jeremiah, so we can get this information out. Exactly. So we can get it out and people can kind of, be aware of these topics, but also not get this channel shut down, because that is the modern censorship that we are coming up against. So here's a video Opa is going to share, and it's a really interesting discussion with the biggest podcaster in the world revolving abortion, and a gentleman, actually one of the first people I've heard really make a good case for pro-life versus pro-choice, and Joe Rogan has traditionally been very pro-choice, pro-abortion, and he actually changes his mind in certain statements in this video. So I wanted to share that. Opa, if you wanted to play the interview with Joe Rogan.
We got no audio.
You understand
to
that?
look that woman in the eye, who was the born
listen,
of a rape.
Do you understand that? That's a 14-year-old child. If a 14-year-old child gets raped, you say that they have to carry that baby?
I don't think two wrongs make a right. I don't think
That's
murder.
not- I don't think that's
murder is
wrong.
an answer to. I don't think murder fixes a rape.
What if we're talking about an abortion when the fetus, literally it's like 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 days? What if she just turned positive, just now? positive for pregnancy.
I just disagree that.
What if it just happened today?
You can like draw a line on when.
You can't.
Like, once life
so you
has
can't
begun,
do
I don't
at
think
the
you draw
very
lines.
moment.
I would lay it out like this. I would say, it is wrong to intentionally kill an innocent human life. Abortion intentionally kills an innocent human life. Therefore, abortion is wrong. And I don't think any of the examples of like, oh well, how developed is it? You know, can it think? Is it conscious? Can it dream? Can it feel pain?
So for you, it's the moment of conception.
I think that if it's a human life, a distinct human life, then I think it's wrong to end its life. And
so you think that do you think that once the conception happens, there's some sort of a miraculous event, like at the very moment, like you could literally get to the point where the sperm cracks the egg. If you could scoop that egg out right there, would that be abortion?
Well, I mean, at some point you're going to have to say there was a magic moment that happened because you believe that we eventually become valuable humans, right?
Well, listen,
where's the moment where you think the magic happened? When we start talking about harmful misinformation and the types of things that are considered, like that I say or that we tweet or the jokes that we make that are considered harmful misinformation, I'm like, well, what about calling that baby a clump of cells? I think that's harmful misinformation because then you're encouraging people to kill it like it's nothing when it's actually a human life. It's a developing human life. I think abortion is healthcare the way that rape is lovemaking. If we want to use rape as an example, I think they're opposites, and it's like these are euphemisms that we use. You know, we use the word healthcare. We're talking about a procedure that ends an innocent human life, and we're calling it healthcare. That's like calling rape lovemaking.
And this is why it's such a human issue, because I see what you're saying. Life is valuable. Like, yes, and people almost were the victims of abortion, and they weren't. They went on to become these amazing people, and we would have lost them.
Sometimes it's a failed abortion. Like there's people who've survived like a saline abortion, and they're damaged as a result of it, but they lived, and now they're born. They usually go on, ironically enough, to become pro-life activists.
Oh, well, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's wild. But it makes sense. I mean, if that's what made you, wouldn't you be a pro-life activist?
Probably would be.
You don't have.
So just wanted to share that. That was a recent interview, and that guy very expertly explained to Joe Rogan kind of regarding the topic. And currently we are 54 days past Roe versus Wade being overturned. And this is monumental. It's something that pro-life activist groups have been petitioning for years, decades. And there currently are many abortion topics on the voting docket in many states, and many decisions are being made in state locales regarding the abortion topic. And so just want to stay current on this, since this is huge news that it passed from a federal mandated level to a state mandated level. And there's certain states that are going crazy draconian, like they're going to make it so you can pretty much abort already born, like 1 month old children, and call it, oh, it's just a health choice, which in reality it's infanticide. And other states that are completely banning this satanic practice, and just it's so fascinating that these conversations are happening with guys like Joe Rogan now, who is one of the most prolific podcasters in the world, and to see him articulate that his mind kind of changing in the conversation is actually a huge deal. And to see somebody who can articulate, somebody who has been previously so pro-choice, to help them understand, hey, that's right. The terms are contradictions. Saying that abortion is a type of health care when it ends up killing an infant, or it was really interesting how he phrased it. But I wanted to share that with the people so that we can get the word out there and keep staying aware of a not a finished fight, because unfortunately sometimes things happen in politics and we think it's a win, but then we put it on the back burner, we forget about it, we don't care, and it's important to understand how these things are continuing to be legislated, continuing to be fought on the state level now, and we want to stay aware and current of these topics. So we're going to share this next topic here. This is in regards to the U.S. recession coming, and JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon told wealthy clients that there is a chance the U.S. is heading into something worse than a recession. And the report says that he was recently estimated last week the probability that the U.S. would head into a recession, and it was reported by Yahoo Finance. And Diamond reportedly said on a client call Tuesday that the economy was strong, but storm clouds were on the horizon, including federal monetary policies, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and rising oil prices. The categorization is an apparent downgrade from Diamond's previous comments in June when he warned of an economic hurricane. However, we have to be aware that when head CEO guys of big banks like JP Morgan are warning their clients that we could be heading to something worse, this is not just an initial red flag. This is like the big bulletin warning sign before things actually happen. Because if they're vocalizing this in the public and they're posting it in Business Insider articles, that means this stuff is almost a shoo-in. You know, these are for sure events that are going to be happening in the American economy. I just recently watched a interview with I believe it was like a YouTuber manager who manages some famous content creators, and even on that interview that came out like yesterday, they were talking about, hey, how are content creators going to be surviving in a recession economy? And they're talking about collapse of Western economies and civilization as we know it in like podcasts now. It's crazy. And these are the people that that usually, like, they don't even talk. It's all, you know, fun and fancies and you know, how fast my car. But when they're like, podcasters are also picking up on this, it means that there's something coming. And not to be just negative Nancy or whatever, but just a reminder that get your things in order. You know, there's things called like Liberty Gardens. You know, figure out your food, figure out your community, because if the government collapses in terms of our finances, it can become a very tough world to live in. And we see places like Sri Lanka, we see places like Venezuela. When their dollar collapses, we see current echoings of China and Russia creating their own world reserve currency, challenging the petrodollar. These are all things to transition the world order. And so where are we going to end up when the dust settles? I don't know, but it's important to be informed.
Yep.
All right. Opa is going to share an interesting video regarding snakes being given back their legs. And it's almost semi kind of creepily prophetic. But I wanted Opa to share this recent inventor that created a walking device for snake. You know, and this is reminiscent of the curse in Genesis, where the snake who tempted Eve in the garden was cursed to slither on his belly. Well, guess what? Now mankind has returned their legs to them. Let's watch that video, Opa.
Oh my god.
You did it, man.
This snake is like totally comfortable with his legs. Hey. Hey, you like having these legs? You like having your legs back? I finally had proof that I really do love snakes. She's going with it. That is crazy. The snakes want their legs back. Oh, bonk.
All right.
So
I want to share that with you guys. What do you think about that, Jeremiah?
Man, that is some weird stuff. Weren't their legs taken away? You know, God took their legs away and now we're giving them back. Of course they want their legs,
Yeah.
but they're not supposed to have them, right?
Yeah, I mean,
It's just like a lizard.
It reminds me of how there's kind of a reversal of curses on the enemy and on mankind happening in today's modern world. Now, this is just a kind of a funny video of somebody who built a leg machine for a snake. But there's even things like, you know, the curse that happened to mankind after the Tower of Babel, where men were split into all their different languages so that they couldn't understand one another. and they were spread across the earth. Well, in today's world, through Google Translate and through interesting devices, the barrier of language is no longer there. And one of the things that was said about that time is that when mankind was in one accord, nothing would be restrained from them. They could accomplish basically anything. And this is tied to kind of the New World Order. And recently, last episode, we shared a video of the British Commonwealth Games and a symbolic, prophetic kind of iconography of a woman riding a scarlet beast, which is in relation to the Whore of Babylon. But in that video also, there's interesting architecture that is reminiscent of what the Tower of Babel would look like. Like in the background, you can see they had like a Tower of Babel. And as stories like this come out, it makes me wonder, like, is Satan like, oh yeah, God thought he could take my legs away, but guess what? God, I got mankind to give me back robo legs. So it's
Robo Snake.
Robo Snake. I'm not trying to get too speculatory or biblical prophecy on you guys, but it's just one of those things. You're like, wait a second, didn't God take their legs away for a reason? So now people are giving them back. Either way, it's kind of cool that somebody could invent something that could make a snake walk again, but it's just crazy.
Yeah, it was cool, weird and cool. I liked it.
We're gonna show another interesting video. Opa is the Project Veritas video, and this is in relation to the raid at Mar-a-Lago and the FBI and the intelligence community putting out warnings against violent domestic extremism that they see, or they are claiming is cropping up in response to negative press regarding the raid at Mar-a-Lago that happened and we covered last week. So Opa, if you wanted to play that Project Veritas video.
Breaking news, a source within the Department of Homeland Security has leaked to us an intelligence bulletin marked for official use only unclassified in light of the FBI raid on President Trump. This document, dated August 12th, refers to a heightened threat from what the Department of Homeland Security calls DVEs, or domestic violent extremists, quote, motivated by a range of ideologies who have grievances against a variety of targets, including law enforcement. Domestic violent extremists are referred to in one of these paragraphs as, quote, many of these threats include references to the perception that the 2020 presidential election was fraudulent and other claims of government overreach. The 2022 midterms in this document are also highlighted as a potential, quote, flashpoint for this violent extremism. We would not have this document but not for the brave source inside the Department of Homeland Security, a news source that reached out to us on our tip line, veritastips@protonmail.com, and also our Signal cell phone. We're getting a lot of sources within the federal government coming to Project Veritas because they certainly can't go to places like the Washington Post or the New York Times, who quote these people on background and show you no documents at all. Now, the Department of Homeland Security has declined to confirm the existence of this document, but you can see it with your own eyes and ears, which is certainly not something the mainstream media wants you to necessarily see, but you can see it here and you can see it at our website. As you may recall, 2 weeks ago, a source in the FBI, a different source, sent us a series of documents revealing that the agency was categorizing patriotic symbols that are very common as indicators of, quote, militia violent extremism. And as Ted Cruz pointed out in the hearing, cross-examining Christopher Wray, the Gadsden flag, this bow tie, if I were to wear it, the FBI would consider it an indication of militia violent extremism. And as Senator Cruz so eloquently articulated, Christopher Wray, what are you doing?
Alrighty. So, man, that's crazy. They are literally using events like the raid on Mar-a-Lago and then watching social media to see how people respond and post and talk about it. And if you talk about it in the wrong way, guess what? You just got framed for domestic violent extremism or as a culpable suspect regarding, the new FBI list of who's a violent extremist, who's a conservative, whatever. And that's painting a lot of people who don't have any violent tendencies towards any government agencies, but rather a different opinion on how they're being used politically. What are your thoughts on this topic?
It's crazy that this sticker right here, right there, could get me in trouble. The "Don't tread on me." That's crazy to me. And what were they saying about cops? Cops are a threat?
Like anybody who
Is
disagrees.
patriotic?
Yeah, anybody who's patriotic is now a target for the federal watch list.
That's crazy.
And this was coming out actually late last year. They were actually saying certain people who disagree with the official narrative regarding the 2020 election are being painted as potential threats and flagged, being watched, whatever. There was also something that indicated people with who celebrated non-traditional festivals and holidays. So people that keep biblical feast, for example, like Rob Skiba and like I do, like we were being painted as possible like threats because we don't like it's just crazy, man. There's so many things regarding this current administration that is kind of setting up good old conservative folk, people who don't buy the official narratives as the enemy of the state. And that's kind of what they want, is they want like things like the January 6th riots, the insurrection, right?
Yeah.
They used that to track down a lot of people who were just, swept away with the events of the evening, or people that support, people raiding the Senate Capitol or whatever. They tracked them down, and a lot of them were put in prison. But it's interesting that things like the Mar-a-Lago raid are being used in online forums to then target and identify people that don't support the FBI's raid and don't support this current administration. They are now being labeled. So
you can't have a different opinion. I mean, I know two different people that were in Washington, D.C. when the January 6th thing happened, but they were nowhere near going inside, and I've heard people like that are being arrested now, which is totally blows my mind. Like, how could they do that legally? And there's still some people still in prison, I think.
It's the same thing with the truck rally in Canada. I don't know if you remember when that happened, but people that donated to those rallies, those protests in Canada of the trucker, all the truckers are striking and people are carrying around gas canisters and stuff. Turns out that if you supported or donated, your bank accounts were frozen. They put you on a watch list. Like, these events, while sometimes they are like, hoorah, these great patriotic moments of, we're going to show them, they're being used by these administrations, these left-leaning, liberal, New World Order administrations, to put you on a watch list. And so sometimes you have to ask the question, how much participation should we give some of these, hoorah moments? Because those people that donated to the trucker rally in Canada, for example, they had their bank accounts frozen. Some of them, aren't able to use, certain money services online. All this kind of stuff is a telltale sign that whatever you are doing online, saying online, is being watched. And I shared a funny meme last week that said how to say just enough of the right terminology to not be put into an indoctrination camp. And it's like this guy kind of studying a book with that on the title. And that's what we have to do in this show. We have to censor our language. we can't just come right out and share our full opinions, which is the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, and we are being inhibited in the things we can talk out about. And let me just share this last article, and we'll be done with the news segment for this week. And this is regarding the same thing we're talking about, but it's pretty alarming. It says the World Economic Forum calls for global intelligence collecting AI to completely erase dangerous ideas from the internet. Guys, this is like the World Economic Forum, the WEF, wants any idea they don't like wiped from the internet entirely. In a recent article post, the World Economic Forum began calling for a global intelligence collecting AI to be created to help censor content across social media, which the WEF believes should be removed. This means the other narrative. This means the other perspective. This means possibly the truth, right? Now, there are sometimes crazy conspiracists out there, people that don't truly have facts to back up their claims. But at the same time, when a dissenting voice is silenced, it becomes a totalitarian agreement, right? It says, notes how the human beings currently working in content moderation and censorship are challenged. These are the fact checkers, are challenged by an ever-growing list of abuses, such as child abuse, extremism, disinformation, hate speech, and fraud, and increasingly advanced actors misusing platforms in different ways. So get ready, 1984 is coming quickly. If you have good articles, great memes, start saving them on your hard drive, because they might not be there always. So yeah, that concludes our current news segment for the day. Jeremiah, thank you.
You did a great job, Jake. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremiah, for listening, and thank you everybody for watching. And if anybody has, memes or news to submit, maybe we can share that email, Jeremiah.
Yeah, submit at SKIBA'NewsNation.com, and you can also write us a letter to Jeremiah Skiba, P.O. Box 560271, The Colony, Texas 75056. And that's if you guys want to write us a letter, we'll read it on the show. Yeah, submit to us. So we have another special Opa's Corner this week, and happy to share it. Take it away, Opa.
Mein Hut und hat nicht 3 Ecken, dann ist es nicht mein Hut.
Welcome to another episode of Opa's Corner. Let's start off again with another story. One day, Einstein has to speak at an important science conference. On the way there, he tells his driver, that looks a bit like him, "I'm sick of all these conferences. I always say the same things over and over." The driver agrees. "You're right. As your driver, I attended all of them. And even though I don't know anything about science, I could give the conference in your place." "That's a great idea," said Einstein. "Let's switch places then." So they switch clothes, and as soon as they arrive, the driver, dressed as Einstein, goes on stage and starts giving the usual speech, while the real Einstein, dressed as the car driver, attends it. But in the crowd, there's one scientist who wants to impress everyone and thinks of a very difficult question to ask Einstein, hoping he wouldn't be able to respond. So this guy stands up and interrupts the conference by posing his very difficult question. The whole room goes silent, waiting for the response. The driver looks at him, dead in the eye, and said, "Sir, your question is so easy to answer that I'm going to let my driver reply to it for me." Now, a story about a dog. A lost dog strays into a jungle. A lion sees him from the distance and says with caution, "This guy looks edible. Never seen this kind before." So the lion starts rushing toward the dog with menace. The dog notices and starts to panic. But as he's about to run, he sees some bones next to him and gets an idea and says loudly, that was some good lion meat." The lion abruptly stops and says, "Whoa, this guy seems tougher than he looks. I better leave while I can." Over by the treetop, a monkey witnessed everything. Evidently, the monkey realizes that he can benefit from this situation by telling the lion and getting something in return. So, the monkey proceeds to tell the lion what really happened, and the lion says angrily, "Get on my back and we'll get him together." So, they start rushing back to the dog. The dog sees this and realizes what happened and starts to panic even more. Then he gets another idea and shouts back, "Where the hell is that monkey? I told him to bring me another lion an hour ago." And now for the funnies. Okay, so the funnies for this week. We're all out of trolleys, so you're going to have to go to hell in a handbasket. Come on. It's either one or the other. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. The eternal screening process. Pre-approved or waiting in line. Hardware up, women's shoes down. Heaven up, hell down. Wow, that desk looks better. Everything squared away. Yes, sir, squared away. Oh boy, ice cream, yell the scientists. This complicates things. Whoa, maybe I'll just pass on my usual barking frenzy. The Wiener Distribution Center. The boss wants his money, see? Or next time it won't just be your living room we'll rearrange. Give me all your money. But I'm a politician. Okay, give me all my money. With summer vacation over, Miss Locke was having a tough time transitioning back to teaching. I don't know which one of you is doing it, but at the end of the sonata, we shall refrain from playing Shave and a Haircut. Yes, already, Warren. There is film in the camera. Beware of Doug. In 1964, we had the 12-inch vinyl LP. In 1967, we had the 8-track tape. In 1972, we had the cassette tape. In 1985, we had the compact disc. In 2005, the MP3 file. In 2014, the 12-inch vinyl LP. After ages, I'm wearing the latest fashion. So, Andre, the king wants to know how you're coming along with St. George and the Dragon. Well, this is just going from bad to worst, entering the middle of nowhere. It's windy. No, it's Thursday. Me too. Let's get some beers. The Lone Ranger, long since retired, makes an unpleasant discovery. Oh, here it is. Kimosabi, Apache expression for a horse's rear end. What the hey? Caution, geezers will erupt without warning. Warning, this is an inclusive society, and if we feel you are talking, thinking, or behaving in a non-inclusive way, you will be excluded. Total burn ban. No campfires. Don't even fart out there. And this concludes this episode of Opa's Corner.
Mein Hut, der hat 3 Ecken. 3 Ecken hat mein Hut. Und hat nicht 3 Ecken, dann ist es nicht mein Hut.
Wow, that was a great Opa's Corner. Thank you, Opa. Very funny.
Thank you, Opa. Yeah, that was great.
All right, well, after that funniness, time for some history. All right, so I'm going to take you back to 1996. After a 17-year killing spree, 23 were injured, 3 were killed, and then the Unabomber was finally caught. His name was Ted Kaczynski. Some might know him as a serial killer, serial bomber. Was he crazy, or was he too smart for his own good, or maybe both? What are your thoughts, Jake?
I don't know a lot about the Unabomber, I'll be honest. So I just, glancingly hearing about it over the years and, maybe history class or, whatever. But let me know. What are the interesting things about the Unabomber?
Well, I'll sum it up with this first clip.
April 3rd, 1996. The day the FBI arrested Theodore Kaczynski, the suspected Unabomber, at his cabin in rural Montana. Beginning in 1978, a mysterious series of bombings across the country had killed 3 people and wounded 23 others.
The bomb on the Yale campus today blew up in the computer sciences building.
The targets were mostly either universities aid, David was able to help his brother to escape the death penalty.
I would like to say that our reaction to today's plea agreement is one of deep relief.
Instead, Theodore Kaczynski is currently serving 4 life sentences without parole at the so-called Supermax prison in Colorado. On May 22nd, He will be 74 years old.
So what made this brilliant man that went to Harvard just go crazy and go nuts? I mean, his manifesto, he pretty much predicted today's AI. And it's the same AI that is in 2022, everything that's in the manifesto. But my question to you, Jake, is why would you think a brilliant guy would just go crazy and start bombing people?
You never know. Sometimes it makes me wonder, perhaps he got what he wanted all along, right? Well, after bombing all those innocent people and hurting people, he got his manifesto published, and so people got to read what he was all about. And so maybe that was his whole goal. But it's interesting that he was anti-technology, and he was talking about the AI of today's world, that it's kind of like it was a self-fulfilling prophecy, even though he didn't want it to happen and he was trying to scare people about this topic. In the end, the world evolved and changed technologically, and now it's what he feared. And so for better or worse, we now have inherited a world that has the early stages of AI, and that, you know, even calls into mind that World Economic Forum article where they want global intelligence collecting AI to completely erase dangerous ideas. And it makes me wonder, the message that he's trying to get out, maybe he didn't do it the right way, but it makes me wonder what he was trying to warn people about.
Yeah, well, have you ever heard of the Harvard experiments?
No, I haven't.
Well, check out this video. This is why I think he lost his mind. So let's go ahead and play it.
Beginning in 1945, American and British organizations teamed up to gather as much military, scientific, and technological research as possible throughout occupied Germany. As German research facilities were seized, Allied force groups began to confiscate war-related documents and materials and interrogate scientists. Despite going against the Nuremberg Code, which prohibits experimentation on human subjects without their consent, MKUltra was conducted in secrecy for over a decade and experimented with, quote, the use of biological and chemical materials in altering human behavior. This amounted to many experiments being carried out on an estimated thousands of US subjects, many of whom did not know exactly what they were signing up for. And many of the experiments involved the administration of illegal drugs. In the early 1950s, Gottlieb arranged for the CIA to buy the world's entire supply of LSD. Once he had collected all of the LSD on US soil, he began distributing it under the guise of bogus foundations, sending it to hospitals, clinics, prisons, and other credible institutions to begin administering it in a series of research projects. In 1963, CIA Inspector General John Vance learned of the program. His office reported, quote, the concepts involved in manipulating human behavior are found by many people, both within and outside the agency, to be distasteful and unethical. As a result of this report, Project MKUltra's operations were slowly scaled back. Eventually, Gottlieb decided that LSD was not useful and that mind control was not possible. The program ended, and in 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered that all documentation from Project MKUltra be destroyed. But while most of the records were destroyed, information on the project remained in some 8,000 pages of financial documents that were accidentally left over. These, along with witness testimonies, would piece together the sordid history of MKUltra. A 1985 Supreme Court document identified MKUltra as 162 separate projects under one umbrella, many of which were conducted at universities and research foundations that did not even know they were taking part in a CIA experiment. Taking place all over the country, the experiments used LSD, barbiturates, hypnosis, and biological agents, and resulted in some unspeakable horrors. While lawsuits were filed and court cases heard demands for restitutions for victims and more information be released, ultimately little was done. According to San Francisco Weekly, only 14 people were actually notified, even though potentially thousands were exposed to MKUltra experiments.
Now, you may be asking yourself, what does the Unabomber and these Harvard experiments have in common? What if I told you that the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, when he was at Harvard, was a part of these Harvard experiments? Would you believe me if I told you?
Oh man, this is so interesting because it ties into our MKUltra research and our discussion with the mind control because they were using LSD in those experiments as well. And so it looks like there was a large swath of time back in those days that LSD was just used to just totally wreck people's identities and turn them into monsters.
Yeah, well, this third clip I'm about to play shows that he was, in fact, a victim of MKUltra. So let's go ahead and play that last one.
Ted Kaczynski was accepted to Harvard University at the age of 16, full scholarship. His family thought this was going to be the beginning of a great future.
When Ted arrives at college, it's nothing like what he had dreamed of and hoped for, because he felt isolated, he felt different, he felt rejected at every turn.
The Unabomber himself, Ted Kaczynski, was part of the Harvard LSD studies.
Was he?
Yeah, they cooked his brain. So he went to school at Harvard. They put him in the Harvard LSD studies. They cooked his dome, and then he disappeared, went to Berkeley, worked as a professor to earn enough money so he could buy a cabin and implement his plan to kill everybody who was involved in technology so he'd stop this takeover of the human race, which probably is true.
Yeah.
Ted basically became a guinea pig in an ethically dubious psychological experiment conducted by Dr. Henry Murray.
They gave a kind of psychological test to incoming freshmen. They selected the people they thought were the most alienated, in effect, the most vulnerable for this study to kind of determine what their breaking point might be.
Henry Murray was using students to study the effect of stress. He did that by subjecting them to long periods of intense interrogation designed to break down their egos, to break down their confidence.
From the time I was a child, I had this realization that my brother was special.
The bomb was placed inside of a book.
16 bombs in 17 years.
I asked Mom, why is he like this?
The most dangerous serial bomber in U.S. history. 16 bombs in 17 years. 23 injuries, and now a third death.
It's very frustrating because you were doing all the things that you thought you should do, and you weren't any closer to solving the case than you had been 2 years previous.
Then the Unabomber reached out to the press and said, I want to make a deal. And it took this case in an entirely new direction.
Along with the latest bomb, he sent 3 letters. The letter says the bombings are the work of a group that hopes to promote instability in industrial society. The bomber says he will stop if a long article he's written is published in a major U.S. publication.
He made it very clear. If you publish the manifesto in the New York Times or the Washington Post, the terrorist group SC will desist from terrorism.
Cases are solved when the subject starts communicating. Anytime you have someone that wants something, they usually give away a little bit of themselves.
The question became, how are we going to take advantage of his offer, if at all? Because at that point in time, the United States had a very specific policy. We did not negotiate with terrorists.
Was that not crazy? I mean, what are your thoughts about that, Jake?
Oh, man. Look, what it makes
kind
me
of connected
think of,
it all together.
It just is crazy. It's just like how we know that there are false flag events. We know that there are government operatives, the MKUltra program that was trying to create individuals that were willing to do atrocious things to push and further agendas. It makes me think that the Unabomber and some of these experiments were when they were working out the kinks, and now today they've likely perfected the method, right? And so now now we have the pharmaceutical connection with school shootings and people who commit these atrocities being heavily put on certain psychiatric medication, and then it makes me wonder. Those were the early days, right? That's when it was kind of a slippery eel, and guys like that could kind of get loose and cause a ruckus. But now it makes me wonder, those who were conducting those experiments, they probably passed their learnings on to the next generation, who then had much more chemical efficiency of manipulating the human consciousness, and that's why it makes me all the more willing to believe that there's such a thing as false flag shootings and people that have been coerced by secret government agencies to do terrible things. Because if they were trying to make people like the Unabomber back in those days, imagine what they're able to create in today's world, man.
And just to put that in perspective, he was an active bomber from 1978 to 1995. Like, that's a long time for him to be doing that. So I didn't see when he left Harvard. I know he was a professor for a little bit before he moved into this wooded area where he lived in this tiny little cabin. Even in that video, it looked bigger than the actual thing. Like, it was the smallest cabin I've ever seen. And it's actually at a museum called Alcatraz East. They own a bunch of cool true crime things. I'm a true crime fan, so I've always wanted to go there. I forget exactly where it is, but they have the real cabin there, which is crazy. And I've seen videos of it, and it's so small. So he was like losing his mind in solitary confinement, kind of like Charles Manson with the MKULTRA connection. He was alienated from society from a young age to, at the end he was doing it to himself. It's kind of crazy. So now I feel like they're doing what they did for the Harvard experiments and MKUltra, but they're doing it on the masses. That they're trying to do it to us, in a way.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, just to see that connection, that's mind blowing. I never connected the Unabomber with some of the other MKUltra and LSD experiments we'd talked about before.
Well, man, that's all I got for history. I hope you enjoyed it, and
oh yeah,
it's time for some memes. Meme me up.
So today we have some funny memes, but before I had a couple of things I forgot to share that are memes also. But did you know next year coming up, The Simpsons are going to finally reveal how the show has managed to predict the future? So notoriously, The Simpsons have been predicting future events in their episodes, and apparently they're going to do an episode all about it in a coming season. So I wanted to share that with you guys. There's this interesting post that I know Rob could definitely relate with in his life. And it says, "The more I read through the scriptures, the less I have in common with modern Christianity." Because unfortunately, Christianity, and for the most part, has become a country club. And a lot of people who go to church don't actually even read the Bible that they claim to be practicing. But I don't know if you've ever done any study, but the Apocrypha, which was taken out of the original King James Bible, the 1611 KJV, included the Apocrypha, and it's a picture of Aquaman about to tackle Superman or whatever, and it says, "Me thinking I understand an entire Bible story," and then the Apocrypha is coming in to tackle him. And I know Rob used to call the Apocrypha the synchronized, biblically endorsed extra biblical text. And it's just so interesting how it expands the story and can just catch you unawares of how much more information there is out there. But to get into our memes of the week, here's our first. This is how boys tell a story. It's a straight railroad track, And this is how girls tell a story. It's like the most confusing railroad yard you've ever seen. So here's another one. Here's a swear jar, and it's kind of got a couple pennies in there. Every once in a while, we all need a swear jar. And then here's a jar of forgetting someone's name 2 minutes after they told me jar. And if
I can relate to that so much. Somebody will tell me their name, and I'll forget it in an instant.
I'm so bad at that, man. I always tell people I have a list of like 20 people's names, and when I meet somebody new, they bump somebody else off the list, and that's all I got. So, here's in regards to the Mar-a-Lago raid. This is the FBI after raiding Melania's closet. It's a bunch of guys walking around in dresses.
It's hilarious.
So here we go. Here's one.
Oh, cat.
Trying to keep my mouth shut when people talk about space aliens and planets. I know Rob would have got a kick out of this one, man. It's just, what do you believe about those conspiracy agendas? Because there's a whole agenda tied around space aliens and space in general that there's a lot to be questioned there. And sometimes when you're in those conversations with people that think they know, but they don't know what you know, you're just like, should I keep my mouth shut or should I break this egg open? Here's a punk rocker back in the day. He's giving you the middle finger, and his shirt says, "Stick it to the man." And now current, version, his shirt now says, "Stick it in my arm," and he has a picture of the Ukraine flag on his guitar, and he's holding up a health pass.
Is that Neil Young? Oh man.
Yeah, man, it's so crazy that there's so many rock stars and previously self-proclaimed rebels and punks that are requiring the Hokie to enter their concerts. Like, they're requiring proof of the what. So it's just so crazy. Like, people rebelling against the current med system are now like more punk than the punks back in the 90s. And wow. Watching TV today be like, sweet reptilian propaganda. Oh man. Here's another one. They have found the square root.
Wow.
It's a square root. Here's a picture of a girl, and it's an interesting scenario. It says, imagine having braces during the apocalypse. No one can take your braces off, and you just have to accept that you have braces forever. I want a novel focused around a character with braces during the apocalypse, and the entire plot of the story revolves around their search for an orthodontist who is still alive, and they sort of accidentally save the world in the process. And the title of this movie could be Brace for It. Oh man, that would be a nightmare if the world collapsed and you were stuck with braces on your face. Nobody to take them off. Oh man. Here's a meme Jeremiah sent me. It says, not knowing the truth makes you ignorant. Sorry. It also can make you arrogant, but not knowing the truth makes you ignorant, and not wanting to know the truth is what makes you a Democrat. Oh man, that's pretty apt. I do say so, Jeremiah. Although I will say sometimes there's people in the Republican Party that stick their fingers in their ears as well.
Yeah, we call them
topics.
We call them rhinos.
Rhinos. All right, and final meme of the day. We have a new stamp, and it costs 0 cents. It's a picture of Joe Biden's face. Oh man. All right, guys, that's all the memes for today. Thank you.
Yeah,
checking those out.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching episode 11. We'll see you in episode 12, and I hope you enjoy this episode. And that's all I got.
Thank you guys for watching. It's great to be able to do this show with you, Jeremiah. Thanks for having me on. And shout out to the Bertaria Times app. If you guys are looking for a great place to share, really uplifting, things, sign up there. I'm on there as Gibberim Bear. But I also get some of my memes that I've been sharing with you guys from that app. So I wanted to give that community a shout out. It's a good place to, plug in if you are sick of all the kind of drama on Facebook and stuff. But anyways, shout out there and shout out to all the people I steal my memes from on Facebook and whatnot. But yeah, once again, great to be on the show, Jeremiah. I think we had a great episode today.
Me too, man. You can email us at submit@skibanewsnation.com, and you can also send us a letter. Jeremiah Skiba, P.O. Box 560-271. The Colony, Texas 75056. And we would be happy to get some more submissions. We got some great ones.
And don't forget, if you listen to us on podcast, check us out on Spotify now and on any other podcasting locations. Make sure to subscribe and like and save those so you can listen to our episodes anytime.
All right, man. Well, I'll see you in episode 12. Hey Skiba News Nation family, thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. You can also help support this channel by getting yourself some Skiba News Nation merch. My new book, Never Got to Say Goodbye, is now available. My book contains an up-close and personal account of who my father, Rob Skiba, truly was as a father and as a man. It includes over 100 never-before-seen photos of my dad and our family. A portion of the proceeds are going towards funding our search for justice for my dad, Rob Skiba. Visit SKIBANewsNation.com/book. Again, SKIBANewsNation.com/book. To learn more about the book, our website will show you where and how you can purchase my book. Also, you can sign up to be notified when my mom's book is ready. Her book will be a first-hand account of the 40 days of terror that my dad and our family experienced at the hands of the medical system that completely denied him of his human rights, and how they denied my mom's right to be my dad's medical power of attorney. Thank you so much for your support and for helping us stay on the quest for truth and carrying on my dad's legacy. Also, we are proud to announce that we are now on Patreon, where you will get bonus content, shoutouts, and much more. Thank you again for watching and helping us stay on the quest for truth. Huge shout out to all our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for your support. We couldn't do this show without you. If you want to help support us, go to patreon.com/SkibaNewsNation.